5 years it has been too long. The PS5, the Series X have been out for half a decade. How does that make you feel, Loon?
Hella old. Hella old. Oh my God, do you know what's crazy? Is that people were debating on what const like is 360 retro now and
Hmm,
stuff like that.
20
Because
years.
when we were in the 360, obviously the consoles that we considered retro were kind of in that same age bracket. Scary. But yeah, 5 years in,
I think
we're getting there.
when the majority of your lineup, when the majority of the releases on your console no longer hold up, then you can call it retro. I don't think that the 360 is ever going to really have that. Like 360 games, I think, are the start of the modern era of video games where mechanics began to be completely understood in the 3D space, and like it just things got established in the PS3 360 era that would kind of persist up until now, and things just kind of keep getting bigger, but it's kind of the same version mechanically, structurally of a 360 PS3 game, but just larger versions of that, which I guess kind of brings us to today's topic. So what we're doing today is we got the full document pulled up on the screen for your viewing pleasure. We're going to be breaking down and reviewing the PS5 and the Series X at the 5 year mark. And to kind of continue off of that last point is I don't know if you feel this way, Loon. I do kind of feel like this is a underwhelming generation in terms of pushing anything forward at all, but I think it is a overwhelming generation in terms of just the amount of content. There are more good games this generation than almost any other generation ever, and sure, a lot of that is because it's easier to publish indie games than ever before. But like there's almost too much good shit to play. Would How do you feel overall before we get into specifics for each console? Overall feeling about the industry, feeling about this generation in its entirety.
It's been very safe, I think. Very, very safe. Because you go back to like the PS4 generation and stuff, you had launch titles which actually felt like it pushed the the hardware to its limit to the point where it was detrimental. It would have performance issues and stuff like that. You don't really see that happening on stuff like Spider-Man when it was dropping and stuff like that. They've refined it to a T almost, and to the point where it feels like they leave a lot of overhead room almost now. Like they've become so powerful, it doesn't feel like they push it to the limit as much as they could. Um, but yeah, the amount of stuff that we get now, the amount of crossover between PC titles is incredible. Where they're getting ported so much quicker. You'd have like on the 360 generation, Daisy was blowing up at that point, and now you have to wait many many years for that to come over to consoles onto the next generation of consoles at that time. Whereas now it's like it's fairly easy to predict that something will come over within the year, usually maybe 2 years now. It's kind of crazy. So I think that there's it's a pretty decent generation. It's just a safe generation,
Yeah.
personally.
I mean when you look at like Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring, and the amount of Expedition 33 and the amount of like high quality great games that we'll remember from this generation. But I think, yeah, to your point, Elden Ring is a PlayStation 4 game. And
Mm.
like Baldur's Gate 3 it's visually very impressive, but at the same time doesn't feel like quite cutting edge in certain respects. And then Expedition 33 feels like as cutting edge as you can possibly get in the double A space, but not quite big blockbuster triple A thing. It's just it's an interesting generation altogether. But how about we jump into the specifics here as we go through and analyze and break down, each console respectively. Do you want to start with the Series X? Since I wanted to kind of have you on board to talk the Series X, because I'll be completely honest, I am very, very negative on this console generation for Xbox. I feel that it's, from a technical standpoint, incredible. Like, it is an incredible box. I mean, just the unboxing experience for the Xbox Series X felt like a spectacle, felt like something to take seriously. But in terms of their, I guess, commitment to the console space, their value of the console space, it feels like a all-time awful generation for in that
Mm.
respect. Like I even think worse than the Xbox One in terms of their commitment to the console. In terms of their as a publisher, like so I wanted to separate from that. But once again, I don't want to draw any sort of restraints for or restrictions for you to play inside of my rules. However you view it, you review it that way. For me, I'm looking at it as like their console business and trying to best like try to put a review score on each console and the 5-year run we've had with both of them.
Is there a particular like thing you want me to zone in at first? Exclusives or something, or just go at it?
Just however you're what speaks to your heart first, and we're going to provide a letter
Okay.
grade for each system. So whatever speaks to your heart first, wherever you're like, this is my overall takeaway. My when I think of the Series X, I think of blank.
Okay. Well, it's definitely it was pulling over the remnants of Xbox One, of where because we said it for so many years, and it's only just now beginning to get that ball rolling of like, oh, but next year they'll do something, and then next year they'll maybe the things will fall into place and stuff like that. So I think like the launch wasn't particularly wowing for an Xbox fan and consumer. Like we didn't have really anything that blew me away. I think like Valhalla was a launch title around that time, if I'm not mistaken. But it's not like that's the thing that you get with Sony. You get like a massive blockbuster game that feels like the whole point of owning the system, which Microsoft's never really done very well in the past two generations. Even with the Xbox One, it's not really anything that's wowing, really.
Yeah.
This though, I because you said it, you're feeling down on them. Having gone through the entire Xbox One generation and how many third-party games just didn't make its way over, I am very, very, very happy with seeing so many JRPGs begin to migrate to the system and many other titles that if this was the Xbox One generation, they would have just skipped it altogether. They just didn't care to put them on the system. Obviously, Silent Hill 2 remakes come out. It's kind of the thing, though, is that we're still having to wait for them. So it's not perfect still. They're still clearly not the preferred destination for publishers. Dispatch decided to skip them.
Mm-hmm.
Absalom, I think, also skipped them.
Yep.
There's the was the Ori developer made a game, right?
Yeah, and
Whatever that was, and
they're
they're skipping it. Like, there's tons of these instances. This is still something that they need to iron out. It's probably why they're deciding as well. Another factor to push into that PC space to try and get around it. If they're skipping the console, make it accessible elsewhere in some manner. But I'm fairly impressed with their ability to get stuff like Sega on board heavily. Um, they seem to be buying in their, I think almost all of their titles are Play Anywhere. So they clearly have a very strong relationship with them. So there's that. They, it's the thing of like they do one good thing and then several bad things. They've kind of screwed the ball a little bit with the Game Pass goodwill that
mm,
people had built up with that massive price hike thing. But at some point, it had to be done. Unfortunately, um, so you said lettering, right?
mm,
As a rank.
yep, letter.
So overall for the generation, you want that lettering?
Yeah, overall your letter grade for Xbox's generation. We'll start with Xbox and then kind of go to PlayStation after we both hit our letter
For
grade.
me personally, I'll go with B because of the amount of third-party stuff. If they didn't get stuff like Persona on the system and Yakuza and stuff like these are massive titles that needed to be there. Final Fantasies clawed its way back in and stuff like that. And that's generous. I will say that it's like clawing onto the B and dropping into the C because
You want to
it's
go B
positive that
minus?
them yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because it's the thing of like, as you can see here, they're in the background, but the Yakuza physicals are there, finally arrived. These titles needed, like, I needed these. um but again, it's that cycle of you're just getting them so much later. These are games that came out on PlayStation ages ago and stuff like that. Like, they need to get better at doing that. I also want to criticize them heavily. The way they handled Silent Hill 2 remake. Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Of like they did their partner preview, didn't mention it there. They didn't really mention anything, and then it's in the store. Like, people from Australia were like posting on Twitter, like, "Oh, Silent Hill 2 remakes on Xbox." That's shitty. That's shitty marketing. Like, this is the thing that they just don't understand. Their marketing is terrible for stuff but like, you'll happily trumpet indie games, but not a big named title like that is baffling. Like, it just seems so mismanaged.
Yeah,
Um,
I think
and that's
that's
like my biggest criticism of them is just mismanagement from top to bottom.
yeah, that's a fairly consistent theme throughout the entire generation. I would say is like
Mm,
some level of significant mismanagement in almost all respects. I think that
yeah.
even with just this, as I got the Series S trailer rolling on the screen right now, and I think that that was such a good idea from the jump to have a lower priced entry point into this ecosystem. But I think even the rollout of that, of, demanding releases simultaneously on the Series S and Series X, caused quite a few problems for like Baldur's Gate 3 not launching their day and date and having some of those troubles with third parties. And then, you're not seeing like Baldur's Gate 3 easily could have ran on the Series S, the Series X and been
Yeah.
there day one.
And they
You're
would
good
have
to.
put it there because they've pulled Larian's titles in the past. It's the type of thing of where I think they still think they're really big dogs and they're not as big. Like, what it should have been is they should be, if you're gonna demand that it runs on a Series X, heavily help that developer. It's
Well,
as simple as that. Like, be the person who's doing the testing and say that we'll like fund it in some way.
it should
Because
have.
they have no incentive whatsoever to do that BS themselves. Like, as you're the smallest footprint on an even smaller footprint of consoles to make something run worse. And it's a lot more difficult when it's just, yeah, again, mismanagement. It's just hubris.
I think it could have been something as simple as like how it's Steam Deck verified, it's Series S verified. Like you check and it'll be on the store before you buy it, and Series S verified, then cool, it runs well on the Series S. If not, maybe you have your yellow markers and your red markers, and like they do with the Steam Deck. But yeah, so from the start we kind of got off to a rocky foot, or a rocky start with the Series S launch. But I think that if you're just talking pure hardware, pure tech, pure specs, like the Xbox Series X is, I don't even feel like anywhere near reached its breaking point. I think that system is going to be able to run pretty much the vast majority of games for the next decade. Because as we're not continuously in this constant pursuit for advancing tech forward and creating higher powered and higher fidelity, and like, I don't think that's going to be our next gen pursuit to like, how are we going to make games more graphically intensive and more like, sure, there will be a select few studios who do that, but even in this generation you're not seeing the majority of studios really take advantage of the PS5 hardware or the Series X hardware. So on that note, I will say, like, you future proofed yourself. Like, if you bought a Series X in 2020 for $500, you future proofed yourself for a decade plus. If you don't want to move off that thing, I have good news for you. When the Xbox Hybrid One or the PlayStation 6, when they come out, you're not going to be getting many exclusive games to those systems, to like next gen exclusives. You'll have PlayStation exclusives, meaning PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 6, but next gen only, I think that's kind of going to be a thing of the past. So the hardware, incredibly impressive. The quick resume and then the backwards compatibility, all of the functionality in terms of the hardware, I've been thoroughly impressed with. Their business around the Xbox, I have been so bummed out by. I,
You're not the only one. The sales figures speak for themselves.
yeah, I, to me, like, so you said B minus for the letter grade. I would really, so it's a very important distinction to be made is that, like, there's a huge difference between the Xbox publishing brand and the, like, Xbox as a publisher is in the best position they've ever been in. You know what I mean? Like, they are crushing it as a publisher. But as a console manufacturer, I really don't feel. I feel that this is the weakest that they've ever been. Because even when you look at the Xbox One generation, they were still very committed to that console until like it did get to a point where heads of Microsoft were like, okay, we got to figure out something. We got to figure out some new pivot, or we need to get out of the console ecosystem entirely. But they were still like going out there buying exclusive games, committed to creating exclusive games, and like they were still selling hardware. They sold close to 60 million units of the Xbox One. Like those are numbers, man. Those are real numbers. And I don't know if they're going to get to 40 this generation. 20 million less.
No, they won't. Especially with them price hikes.
And so it's just like with the lack of commitment and also I don't necessarily care so much if you decommit to your plan at the start of a generation. Doing it mid-generation, getting people to spend the money after saying, "We bought Bethesda for exclusive games." And it's like, "Okay, so no more of that." And people spent $500 because they thought that they needed to buy your system to play those games. It's like that is definitely a they're absolutely not committed to this space. And I think that this has been the year or the 2 years, 2024 and 2025 has been the years where they're like making it abundantly clear that they don't really have a lot of investment or interest in the console space anymore. Um so I mean for that, like I
Yeah, in its traditional sense, I would say they don't have, but they're still obviously committed to making that next hardware. They've come out and said that multiple times. Um,
well, I mean
they're doing something different because nothing that they've done previously has worked. I don't think it them if they, for instance, kept the exclusives and stuff like that from Bethesda, it just they wouldn't have sold. You saw Indiana Jones just not sell, really. Starfield not really sell, and stuff like that. And it's like because you have a conflict of interest where you've gone with the Game Pass model, so you're drilling it into people's heads to just buy the subscription. So therefore, they buy less games. You know, you're getting money back in some capacity, but the sales just suffer. And the hope was obviously that it was probably gonna. The aim is, I imagine, is it was meant to be short term. Of you take that like little bit of a hit, kind of like how you're taking the hit on the price of the consoles, so that you'd shift more consoles because that's such a good deal. But what they've failed to understand is that people there's more to it than just that. There's so many factors as to why people choose the platforms that they're on. They're not going to just up and leave like their entire friend group. That's like gaming is very, very social. You're going to convince all of your friends to ditch all of their digital libraries and hop to another. It's no, it's
Yeah, we'll just never
crazy.
know. They didn't get the chance to really to fully see the vision through. They were on track to sell like similarly to the Xbox One, and so I get why they pivoted away from the console business. And it's like I'm not. This isn't a thing of me necessarily begrudging the decision they made. Like I understand if you, because Starfield was one of the best selling games of 2023, but it was not a
It wasn't
system
like a
seller.
it wasn't a Skyrim level of like shifting copies where that thing fucking dominated. That's what they were probably hoping, is that, oh, this will be the enticing thing.
And
And it showed that it isn't.
and so like I think that that's kind of the fork in the road. If
Mm.
that was Elder Scrolls 6 instead of Starfield, I think we would have all the answers that we need. And we'd be able to, like, if it was a 90 plus Metacritic Elder Scrolls 6, we would have every answer that we need. I think that the unfortunate thing about this generation for Xbox is like we leave the generation with so many question marks of like alternate timeline scenarios. What if this? What if that? Phil Spencer had this vision that like God, I wish I could have seen it through. I wish we could have seen the execution of the vision. But when you spend $70 billion buying Activision, you got to make some fucking money quickly. And like it became very, very, very Microsoft corporate and much less Xbox. You know, the change in your couch cushions that you can kind of ignore and let them do fun, creative, cool shit. And you know, Microsoft isn't a creative, like they're not a creative company. Um, and so I mean, for the console, if we're talking publisher, I would give them. This has been one of the strongest years that any publisher has ever had in the history of ever. Like they have fucking crushed it as a publisher of video
As a
games.
console, like there is, they've released, I think, what was it, a game when you broke it down every month from their stuff.
As a publisher,
Yeah,
yeah,
12, 10 plus releases. I think the 12 they hit.
yeah.
That's insane.
As a publisher of games, it's they're on a different level. As a
Yeah.
console, it just zero impact.
Mm.
Because I mean, they did have technically two exclusives this year, Avowed and South of Midnight. Neither of them really made much noise. And it's hard to like how do you factor the future? Like you can't really factor the future into this conversation too much because we don't know, but do I think Avowed and South of Midnight will forever be exclusive unless they
There's
just
Keeper on PlayStation.
keepers? So yeah, there's three. There's three. And I think all three of those are the same situation of resources. Of like,
Mm.
did they just not have the resources to port them? And will they end up being ported at a later date? It's just hard to once again, if we're talking publisher review, they're
Hmm.
A range, B plus A range. As a console, like how I feel about the Xbox brand as a console 5 years in and looking 5 years to the future. I mean, D minus. I don't think that. I mean, it feels very Sega esque, and whenever like I can't separate that.
Mm.
It definitely feels like the end. And it doesn't mean the end of once again, it doesn't mean the end of Xbox. Xbox will
No,
because we were
no. It has similar overlapping things with Sega, but they're nowhere in the same and at the same time.
no.
Where there's
Xbox has Call of Duty.
Well, yeah, they have also a storefront. It's a different time as well with PC storefront and stuff like that. Like if they've truly folded, they would be able to just fall back on that at worst, and slowly strangle the console stuff. I think it's just they're trying to become almost. like the fast food of gaming, like just chugging along and not excelling at anything. Like this isn't something where you go to receive PlayStation style top of the range The Last of Us and stuff like that. They're just kind of Call of Duty, Gears, Halo, like they're just it's very safe stuff, and you're seeing that it's kind of even backfiring on them. Call of Duty struggling this year. People are kind of getting fed up with
Yeah.
it, and that's the worst case scenario for them is that you've acquired them, and people have finally felt like they've had enough of your BS because it's for the longest time it would be like, yeah, Call of Duty will be the best seller every year, best seller of the holiday season and stuff like that, unless something like say GTA comes out and dethrones it, or some anomaly comes along. It's usually a safe bet that they are topping charts or very close to topping charts. They're struggling this year. It said it was down like 50% in some areas of the world. That's
Yeah.
insane of a drop off because they're not. It would be different if it was down 50%, but they came back and were like puffing their chest that their subscription was up 50%. Then like, okay, you're scraping what that game would have cost over a few months. Cool. That's beneficial in some capacity. But they're not. The subscriptions
Dude.
not really. It's not snowballing, and that big money hitter is taking a hit,
Yeah, well,
for
that's
lack
the
of a
thing.
better
We have
phrase.
no idea because they don't report the numbers. So we have not the slightest clue about any sort of how anything's doing other than like predictive analysis. And so it's a
They
real
are they are very loud though. These companies when like just something as simple as last year when they were celebrating that we're this, we're that, we're like it's what EA did this year with Battlefield. When a game is doing well, they won't be quiet about it.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm talking about the
And there's
subscription
just
service.
nothing. I'm talking about Call of Duty,
I
is
know,
what I was talking about, of just it's not doing anything.
but I'm saying like even in collaboration with that of you said like the fall of the player base, and it would be nice to have the rising player base to offset some of the costs with people jumping into Game Pass, and we saw that that didn't happen last year, and then it's like on top of that you double the fucking price, and so it's like I you because that's I guess that's my overall feeling with Xbox. It's like I don't know who this thing is for anymore. Because it used to be the cheapest way to play games. You could
Hmm.
jump in with a Series S, have Game Pass, $15 a month. That was all you had to spend, and you could have more gaming buffet than you could ever possibly. You wouldn't have enough time to play all the good stuff that was on offer. And
Yep.
then we knew that, like, of course, this has to get a price increase over time, and it did here and there and there. And then, but this year, once again, it's like the oh my god, the real gut punch of no, it's not 15, it's $30 a month now, and yeah, I I just don't know who any of this is for anymore, and I guess that's the bigger bummer of it all, of like going into the next generation. I am just beyond confused of like what the plan is, what the because if we factor the future into this discussion, it's like a $1,200 thing that you can hook to your TV. I it's probably going to be a powerhouse of a thing, but are we expecting 10 million, 15 million in sales opposed to 30, 40 million? Like what is yeah, I don't know if they're really in this space anymore. Like really, really in this space. I think
No,
they're
I don't
creating
think.
niche things for a smaller audience.
Yeah, I don't think they're looking to compete in the traditional console sense anymore. I think that's kind of. I will say as well, because we see this a lot with the when they were not predicting, when it's been reported on how many like units the 360 shifted. I think it's fairly well known that the ones that they sent back was also counted, right? As sent units, technically. So it kind of heavily buffed up them numbers. So I think what was it? You said 60 million for Xbox One?
Yeah.
I think that's probably realistically in the ballpark of what actually was sold for the 360, if I'm being honest.
So then
I
that
think a
makes the
lot of,
Series X look even worse.
yeah, no, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Is that you look at it of how many, because in them first few years, so many people broke with that 360 and they were sent back. Um, so heavily buff numbers is what I personally believe. And then, yeah, it's just been falling down and just, I think they kind of have to do what Valve does now of just maybe just ramp the price up and just commit to a niche audience that are going to be willing to pay that for a specific thing because people aren't buying your product.
Yeah.
You look at it every single, whenever any report is out there for how many they're selling, they're being outsold by like Switch Ones, PS4s in some cases. That's terrible.
Yeah.
That is actually terrible.
And I want to reiterate, I know that it's like that started in 2024. That started after that business update meeting. And like you saw the fall off to where the years prior they're selling like 6 and 7 million consoles, and then it's like a immediate decline to 3 million and 2 million. And yeah, it's uh, if you tell people you don't have to buy their thing, they're going to listen, you know?
Yeah.
And but once again, they have the bean counters. They're the people crunching the numbers, and if they think they can make more money selling you their games on PlayStation and Switch than the 30% cut that they'll get from all the Fortnite skins, this, that, and the other, by you investing into their console ecosystem, it's like it's business, baby. I don't. I, if we're talking about from a business standpoint, we're having a total different conversation. But just looking at the hardware, I would have to give them a D minus for a great technical piece of kit. But in terms of their overall console business, I'm going D minus. But on the other end, with the PlayStation, I don't have necessarily positive thoughts about them either. We're talking about, in my opinion, a generation that was off the. I mean, the success of the PS5 is by and large off the back of one of the greatest console generations of all time with the PS4. Because you gotta think as well, like they go into they end the PS4 with that crazy run of 2017 you had, or 2016 you had Uncharted, 2017 you had Horizon, 2018 you had Spider-Man and God of War, 2019 slightly softer with Days Gone, might have been something else. 2020 you close off with two killers with The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima. And like you said, to your point, they did open up with Demon Souls as their exclusive launch title for the PS5, which remake of a PS3 game, but regardless, decently popular title. But then you go into 2021 with like Returnal and Ratchet and Horizon Forbidden West and Ragnarok. But a lot of these, or Ratchet and Returnal, are not on PS4, but Horizon and Ragnarok are. And then you have a softer year in 2023, but you still do have Spider-Man in 2023, Spider-Man 2. And, 2024, you're talking about, that would have been Astro's year, 2024. But also, this is where we start having a slightly different conversation where Concord was 2024 as well. And that's where a lot of my negative feelings around PlayStation as a, well, I guess kind of the opposite conversation. My feelings on PlayStation as a console manufacturer are fairly positive. My feelings on PlayStation as a publisher are less so. How are you feeling overall? What do you when I say the PS5 generation, the generation for PlayStation, what is your kind of main top of the line thoughts?
I mean, it ends up being relatively positive. It's the type of thing where even because I think we both have the opinion that it is a step down from PS4.
Yeah.
It feels like, but the problem with that being is that you've come from essentially as close to a 10 out of 10 generation that even a step down like is still incredible. Like Xbox hasn't had this level of a generation, like it still knocks that out of the park. So even like a weak generation is still incredible. The titles that they put on offer, it's not like they're like you said, Concord, yeah, there's a little bit of a blip in the radar. Some of them could have been probably in an alternate reality where PS5s were easier to get hold of earlier in the generation. Maybe God of War Ragnarok would have been a PS5 exclusive. It's the type of thing where they had to be very mindful with how things were going. Like they weren't selling as well because it was hard to get hold of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say they were selling poorly. It's just the type of thing like the demand couldn't meet what they had.
Supply. Yep.
Um, so I don't. I look on it as I think it's still an incredible generation. Both Xbox and PlayStation. I still have the opinion that it's fairly safe. I don't think they've taken particularly any risks. Sony's probably taken bigger risks with trying to greenlight live service stuff, but it's the type of thing of like when you're sitting on a dragon's hoard of money, you make stupid decisions because you're trying to find ways to make that money even bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that means because you have such a big cushion now, you can be a little bit more riskier, and that's what they've done, and it's not benefited them. It's going to take them a few years, I assume, to kind of get things back into motion order. Because I'd be shocked if they're still trying to pursue that heavily. I think they've began to like the what was it? I don't know his name. They've basically started taking Japan a lot more seriously now, which is a really good sign. They kind of conceded to Nintendo a lot. They didn't really care, is what it was basically being felt as, and now they've gone and done that Japanese only console to make sure that them numbers in Japan don't continue to fall. Because Nintendo were wiping the floor with them. Because this is the thing, is that you need to when you're trying to be popular everywhere, you need to keep account of the factors of everywhere. It was very difficult to get a PS5 in Japan because of the weak currency, unfortunately. So to make sure that they're able to meet that player base, they've done that like what locked Japan only, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper.
Yeah, like
That do you know what that
$150
does?
cheaper.
Exactly. And do you know what that does? That brings them back goodwill
Mm-hmm.
heavily.
And that's a big move. They're taking a big
Yes.
loss.
Yes. But it's the thing of you're taking a bit of loss on that, but you can do that as you have so many users that will help cover that cost with software sales. And the people who are buying them consoles will cover that cost with software sales. Yeah. It's the type of thing of like it's great to see that. If they didn't do that, it would be a little bit more negative. But it shows that they're going back to being a bit more forward thinking and making a little bit more rational decisions rather than brazen and bold that can blow up in their face.
Yeah, I think that one of my because I've had people argue to me a lot, and I do hear their feedback where they're like, if you stack it up game by game and you just look at the exclusive outing for PlayStation 4 versus PlayStation 5, it's almost identical in terms of the output. And fair, like I've seen I've seen them make the charts whenever I make this complaint in the past, and one of their arguments that they'll make to me is like a lot of the games that was canceled during the PS4 generation or late PS3 generation we probably just don't know about. And once again, fair. There are more leakers and more insiders and more scoops
Mm.
and more social media posts, and also there's more bullshit out there as well. So like, I do think by and large, all of the game cancellations that we know about are legit. I do think they, for whatever reason, had Bluepoint working on a God of War live service game. We know for a fact they canceled Sony London's game and killed the studio. We know for a fact that Naughty Dog got their live service Last of Us game shut down. We know for a fact that a Twisted Metal game was shut. Well, actually, I don't think we know that for a fact, but heavily reliable rumors would suggest that a Twisted Metal game was canceled, and so on and on. Spider-Man service games. So there's been a lot of these missed opportunities with first party and a lot of money spent there where you start to think about, oh well, damn, I wonder if that could have funded a Bloodborne. Like, could that have funded an Until Dawn? Could that have funded like a lot of the highest quality third party, your Detroit Become Humans, Persona 5, like those deals that you struck, and they've done a great job of striking those deals with Final Fantasy 7 and Silent Hill 2. So it's hard to criticize them harshly on that front because they have been making up for it. But it doesn't, it does for sure, regardless of all of that, when that level of waste occurs, when that level of resource waste occurs, I think it has to negatively impact the overall grade because it impacts the overall output.
Yeah, because you think, just hypothetically, if they weren't live service titles and they actually made it out the door, how many more titles you'd have at your disposal? That'd be crazy.
Yeah. Like,
They'd almost double what was on offer, which
exactly.
is kind of like what you hope when things get bigger, more money's funded into it, you expect more titles. So yeah, it's great that when you stack it up, that it's basically matching PS4, but the hope is that, each
Better.
generation they should be getting more
Yeah.
titles. If they're that damn successful as well, it's not like they were struggling in PS4. They were making money hand over fist, big time.
Well, and it's like without Insomniac, what does this generation look like? Without Miles Morales, Rift Apart, Spider-Man 2, you are talking about an entirely different picture that we're painting here for the output for first
And
party.
they're doing the Wolverine game,
That's
right?
coming in
So
2025.
like
Yeah.
they're heavily, like, I gotta hand it to them that they're heavily carrying a lot of weight on their back for Sony.
It's them and Obsidian, like the two first party workhorses. Um, with Pentiment, Grounded 2, Outer Worlds 2, Avowed, like it's a crazy generation over there. But um yeah, from a tech standpoint, once again with the SSD and the it's a powerhouse. That base PS5 is a fucking beast, just like the Series X is a absolute powerhouse, man. To pay $500 and get those systems, it's crazy. We're getting away with murder getting those systems for $500. Like you'll never get a PC for $500 with that type of capability for those two consoles. So I'm not, once again, I'm not discrediting that. I that's factoring into my score positively, without a doubt. When you see something like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and the simultaneous loading multiple worlds, jumping between the rifts, and like all of that shit is awesome, man.
I do want to quickly tug on that string. It's awesome that they accomplished that, but it doesn't seem like it's being utilized as well. It's been thrown out there for that game, and like what other games really
Spider-Man
pushed it
2
to that limit?
Spider-Man 2 does it. The instantaneous like no load times for Yote is the same, utilizing the SSD for like you.
I mean, like from a gameplay mechanic, though, not from just like loading and stuff. Like they revolved the entire game around Rift Apart with the switching, right?
Yeah.
That's the type of thing of when you think of next gen in previous generations, like with where I've said this time and time again, like Knack, when that came out and it had so much stuff and Resogun, so much stuff going on the screen, which would not have been doable on a PS3.
Yeah,
And
Astrobot
then,
would
yeah,
have been another one that messes with that tech. But yeah, it's definitely it is a I agree
it's
with your
tamer. Is what, like, that's what I'm pulling at. It just feels tamer. It feels safer. They don't want to take that risk. It's like, here, we've shown it on these few games and stuff like that, but they could definitely push that tech further. They just choose not to. Like, it's great the loading times that I've seen seen it in action. You boot from the menu screen to like Death Stranding 2, and it's like what 2 seconds, and you're in, maybe less. Like that's really, really impressive.
It
Really
feels
impressive.
Yeah, it feels like they're creating a lot of games with the what if scenario of do we need to put this? Do we need to possibly port this to PS4 at some point? And if so, what are the
Mm.
things that we need to cut to make sure that that could be possible? And like you see something like Death Stranding 2 and it's like that ain't going to PS4. You know, you see something like Yota, you're like that's not going to PS4, but a lot of their other titles, even when you look at, some of the more recent shit where you're like, "Oh, maybe X, Y, and Z game could end up on a PS4. Could we possibly see somehow a Spider-Man 2 running on a PS4? Like I doubt it, but you do start to think like, could that be possible? Could it be possible to get an Astrobot running on a PS4? Like you start thinking of those scenarios, but
And PC, don't forget that. Obviously, that's a factor that they're taking into consideration. And
yeah,
what was
lower
it?
spec
They were,
PCs for sure.
I was about to say, like when they did that survey thing for Valve where they were justifying why they chose the components they did, it's like, dude, like 50, 60% of you people have something that's within the realm of this. So like
Oh, way
it
more.
fits.
Yeah, I think
Was it more? I think it
Yeah,
was like I okay. I lowballed that.
I
And
think.
that's what I mean. Like, and that's where they're having to kind of be a little bit less ambitious because, like you said, if they're looking at that as a potential market, which they have, they've thrown plenty of single player games over there. You do need to just keep that in mind because when you throw that to that team that needs to then make it work on them, a lot of them systems and components, it'll be a ball ache
Yeah,
otherwise.
absolutely. I might have been referencing a different study. The one I was talking about was a couple years ago. Was this recent?
No, this was the recent one where they
Okay.
were justifying what graphics cards and stuff people had and what RAM and why they chose to put the Steam machine the way it was and
Okay.
stuff like that.
The study I was referencing was like, how they talk about that there are, I don't know, like 400 million PC gamers in the world. Like that's you.
Oh yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like a study comes out and says, well, that mostly accounts for PCs that are about the same power of like a Game Boy Advance. These things are running damn solitaire, and that's about it. Um, but
Minesweeper, baby. Let's
yeah.
go.
So I mean, I don't know. Listen, for my score for the PS5, I it's trending up for sure. They're coming around. They're coming to their senses, but C plus.
Damn.
I'll go C
It's
plus.
crazy. It's crazy because of the perspective difference, isn't it? Because I'm gonna go A minus. I think they're doing just fine. I think it's a little bit safe, like I said, but I'd kill to have most of the stuff that they're putting out
Yeah.
on Xbox. Um, it just goes to show like Helldivers comes over and it makes the wave that it does. There's obviously it's gone
Helldivers,
back and
yeah.
forth. Forza Horizon 5 went over there and it did fucking gangbusters. But yeah.
Maybe C plus is a bit. That might be a bit.
But this is but at the same that's what I was talking about with perspective thing is that if that's your home console that you feel at home at, there's a certain level of thing where you expect more from them.
Well, see, I don't really feel at home on any of these things, and like that's my. I I think that that's a key thing that I try to explain, but I know I don't really try to explain. I don't think I've ever explained it, so let me try to explain it here. I'm not a big fan of anything at all. Like, there's not a single
Mm.
thing in this world that I'm like a massive, massive, massive fan of to the point that like I won't criticize the shit out of it. Resident Evil might be the closest thing where I understand, like factually, objectively, that those games aren't really doing anything from the standpoint, like they're not pushing anything forward ever. But I don't care. You could give me a new one of those every single year, and I'm like, I'm gonna eat it up like it's just my comfort food style of game. I love it so much. But I think also at the same time, I will say things like it doesn't push anything forward, and it's not all that impressive on any front at all. It's fun. I love playing them, but like yeah, Resident Evil is not some blockbuster thing, even though it's doing better than ever, selling incredible. I'm thrilled because it means we're gonna get more of them. I can just keep playing them all the time. But like, I'm that's probably the closest I get to like fanboyism of I'm a fanboy of that franchise, I would say, or close in that tinge realm of fanboy, where I'm not objective. Anytime a Resident Evil comes out, it's going to be somewhere in like my top 5 favorite games of the year. But like, I, when it comes to anything else, I really don't have that thing in me where this was the generation I absolutely would have swapped over to Xbox as like my primary console easily. I thought that that was almost a foregone conclusion just with the studios that they bought that I love. Ninja Theory, I love them. Obsidian, love them. Bethesda, I've kind of grown to love them actually. And I love some of the studios under them already, but like they bought so many studios that Tango and like these teams I adore that they had under their belt. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm certainly going to be probably my main platform will probably be an Xbox by 2028, by the end of the generation. But, and I think that's also where some of my disappointment comes from is like, I think that it was almost lined up perfectly for them to have a crazy end of the generation, like a mind-blowing end of the generation. Like there's an alternate path that we take in this crazy scenario where Activision doesn't get bought, because Activision contributed almost nothing in terms of like output. Tony Hawk and Call of Duty was this year, right? From them.
Yeah, their arcade thing.
So let's just say you take Activision out, right? You're still left with Avowed, The Outer Worlds 2, Grounded 2, on and on and on, South of Midnight, and then you get into next year with like Clockwork and all of these games, Fable, Forza Horizon 6, these games that have nothing to do with Activision. And you're talking about a crazy lineup. And then does it become like the compounding thing of just there's so much shit over here. There's so many heavy hitters that, like, I'm not saying does it shift 20 million players. I'm not saying that, but just like overall, because even the Dreamcast is left with this feeling of like, y'all missed out. Y'all were asleep on this thing. It just had bangers and y'all didn't buy in. And I don't feel like that same sentiment is going to be shared. It's going to be the sentiment of like collective disappointment.
Yeah, maybe. I think that in the same vein as well, it seems to happen a lot in gaming where people look back and like, why did that fail? And it's people just didn't adopt it. I think if people were still trickling over big time, maybe they would have continued to hold a grip onto it, but they could just see it slipping. Because you look at like with PlayStation and stuff like that, you look, people have started to get nostalgic about the Order 1886. Wow, why didn't we ever get a sequel to that? You didn't buy it at launch.
Yeah.
Days Gone, like it struggled initially. It's done really well now, but like the boat sailed, unfortunately. Like the games, I think people forget because sometimes I'll put my hands up and forget as well. I think everybody does. When a game releases, say in 2025, that's not meaning that it was developed only in 2025. Like these games have been in development for years. So like if something struggles and they've got that immediate feedback that it's not sold, they're not going to immediately greenlight a sequel on a potential what if sleeper sales down. Like that's not how that works anymore.
It happened when Days Gone.
It's so incredibly expensive. They can't do that benefit of the doubt stuff anymore of sleeper sales and being like, okay, well, 5 years. That is why Avowed is Avowed and not Pillars of Eternity 3. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
If they were like, well, we're not going to greenlight that because it took you so long to turn a profit. We need something that has a lot more potential. So, yeah.
Yeah. Overall, I do think that, like, I think it's going to be one of those fascinating what if scenarios that people can talk about forever of just no
no doubt.
Activision, then what happens?
Yeah.
It's like it's that one thing. It's just that one individual thing of like no Activision, then what? But as we talked about, I guess to close this out, just talking about the future and like the future people we were talking before we started all this. It's like the people always talk about, yeah, people are the future is PC gaming. People are moving to PC. They're leaving console and moving to PC. It's like, no, that's not that's not even.
But Take-Two CEO said it. Or
Well,
whatever he said.
well, he's right.
I
Strauss
think it's
Zelnick is
trend.
correct that like there are people, their PC is growing rapidly. You
Yeah,
definitely want to be there for sure, but
yeah.
it's not like console is going to die and PC is going to be the new thing. It's going to be TV. We're all going to be playing games directly from our TV. If consoles die, it's going to be because we're all playing games on our TV, not because we're all playing games on our PC.
Yeah. And it's this is going to be a scenario as well because we're it's what ifs again. Who knows? We both could be wrong. In 20 years' time, PCs could. It's the thing of like anything like the Steam machine, for all we know, could fucking blow the doors off. Gaming is so weird. Like trends just come out of nowhere. Things stick with people. They do well. I don't think it's gonna overtake consoles in that span, of course. I think that's a fairly safe estimate. And consoles are just going to be fine. They're just going to grow, like you said. I think they'll grow a good amount because we've already seen that happen already with
The
the Steam
Switch.
concurrent.
Oh,
No, the Steam concurrent players. Like I lowballed Battlefield this year, big time,
yeah.
because I was like, "There's no fucking way." And it's just like, holy shit. Okay, there are that many people because what I had in my mind as well was low system specs, trying to factor that in. Clearly, enough people have something fairly decent inside their rigs that can run it. It was also really well optimized, so hats off to them. Unlike Monster Hunter, but even Monster Hunter did crazy big numbers, right? At the
Yeah.
beginning
Oh,
of the
yeah.
year, like
Yeah.
really, really good numbers.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
Yeah. It's no doubt like it's going to continue to grow. And it's the thing of, you know, even to some degree with PlayStation, like, well, if your games are going to be available on a PC that's more powerful in a year's time, 2 years' time, like, I'll just go over here and buy a PC. Like, some people definitely have that thought process. Some people don't want to wait a year, 2 years. And then with Xbox, like, if they sold 60 million with the Xbox One and then they sold 30 million, 40 million, well, then there's 20 million people. Where did they go? Did a lot of them go to PC? Did some go to PlayStation? Did some go to net? So PC is going to grow, continue to grow for sure. But I think that Xbox is in the best position possible for the future when the future's not console gaming
mm.
and when the future's also not PC gaming. Because I don't think they're in a good position there either for PC gaming. That's the thing that like a lot of people are like, yo, well, they're ready to take off in the PC space. It's like I don't think so.
Of the it's the thing of like where you draw of the three of them, they are. That's the thing. It's where you draw that like between that, but it's they have a long way to go. In the Discord today, they ended up downloading the update on the ROG for the full screen experience thing. Have a lot of praise to put it its way, but at the same time, it was like there's there's still so many things here. Like if they want to be competitive, you have to have more. Like it's cool that you've added this function so that if you boot up this now, it just boots up like an Xbox. Cool for the people that want to use that only as like a console thing and only as a gaming device. But there's so many features that are missing from the console still that you need to pull into there. Like you need these incentives. You can't half-ass it. And like they've been really good. It's not been on the market for that long with all this stuff. So there's that rumor of the what is it next year? People think maybe it could launch a console or the year after. Like
Yeah.
it's around the corner.
Mm-hmm. The PC console
These
hybrid
are
thing.
the things that they need to get right, they need to get right at this pace that they're getting them right.
Hmm.
This kind of rollout, it's been about a month and a bit. That's the kind of stuff you need to be doing. If they start dragging their feet, it's not going to matter,
Yeah, and
really.
they could be in a really good position in terms of optics, where we just had the report today that came out suggesting that Valve is probably going to price the Steam machine around $800 and more. So if Microsoft's all right, we'll take a little bit of a hit and charge $1,000, but it's going to be significantly more powerful than the Steam machine, and it only comes out a year later. It's like they'd be in a good position there. But once again, when you're talking about $800, $1,000, when you're talking those prices, you're talking about a much smaller audience. But once again, as we're talking about the Series X and the PS5, that's a situation where you're not going to have to move, because everything's going to run on your PS5 and Series X. For if you thought that this generation was a lot of, oh damn, we're in 2024 and we're still playing games that are being ported to PS4, wait till next generation. It is going to be, we might not get to a point where there's next gen exclusives. Like, I mean, there will be a few, but by and large, we might get to a point where 8 years into the next generation that the big publishers are putting the vast majority of their games on PS5 and Series X.
It's why they really, really wanted PlayStation in particular. Like, they didn't want to support backwards compatibility because for them, it's not good as a platform holder, because that gives many more reasons for that person to stay on that and not rush to upgrade. If you dangle like that's the thing that I will say, because I'm much more against exclusives than you. If there's the one thing that you can do with an exclusive, it's if you tie it to that console exclusive. It's not just like a platform that's launching, you can play it on PS4, PS5. The thing that you need to be doing is dangling it only on a PS5 and do another one and another one, and so that there's 4 or 5 of them, and it's like that's how you entice them to get off the system
Yeah.
and move forward. But yeah,
Yeah.
they obviously couldn't do that, and now the ball's gotten rolled to this point, so that this precedent has been set. If they go really, really hard like that, that's going to be a big turnoff for a lot of people now, unfortunately. So, like you say, when you take the rabbit out of the hat, it's kind of hard to put it back in for a lot of things. And the same with the PC thing. There was tons of people that were like, "Oh, they're gonna stop." No, no, they're not. Like they've they've opened that Pandora's box. They've seen that it makes money. They're gonna explore it in some capacity.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if they just had their own launcher within the next, like, maybe right alongside the next console, where they have a PC launcher available. You can play their stuff day one. I mean, I don't know. I have not the slightest idea. I do like some of the reporting about the money that it makes on PC is definitely like, people get carried away with the amount of money that they think it makes on PC. It's not like even close to, it's 2%, 3% of their overall earnings each year, but it's still, you're
Yeah, that
talking about.
graph came out, didn't it? Saying it was 1.5 billion, which sounds like a lot of money,
Exactly.
but which don't get me wrong, it's not a small amount of money. Like, how much did they buy Bungie for?
Yeah, it was, what was that, 4 billion, something like that,
Yeah,
10
so
billion.
like it's helped put towards paying off that terrible choice. Um, but yeah, when you look at like their overall, when you take a step back, it was, as you said, it was around about 2%
Mm.
of their overall revenue earnings. So like it's they're still money makers on the console side. That's where they're making their fucking money,
Yeah,
big time.
I think Sony is making about 40% of its overall revenue for the
Mm,
entirety of Sony from the
yeah.
PlayStation console specifically. So it's like, it's, I do understand what people are saying, because you're just letting Valve sleep quietly to the finish line. And it's like, if these motherfuckers are going to, but that's the thing, is like, if they enter the living room at $800, you don't have to worry about them at all. You know what I mean? That it is irrelevant. But you do have to worry if they enter the living room at $500. That is a serious worry. If there's ever a point where they could make the argument, we have your games, all the indie games, it's $500 and it's just as powerful, and they're willing to take a loss and they want to enter the living room, then yeah, you are in direct competition. And so I could see a reason for getting off of Steam or getting off of PC entirely when it's not making you that much money. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's like, I don't really think. I think the conversation about PC in general is a bit just talking about nothing for no reason. I think that we're missing the obvious endpoint, and that it's like, it's going to be on our TV. There's 10 billion of these TVs just sitting out here in the world. And if you can get, Game Pass for $20 a month on 10 billion, not obviously, but let's say 400 million, 200 million subscribers on Game Pass because they're able to just access it on their TV. Like, that's the future. It's going to become the subscription wars. And that's where I do think Xbox is in prime position to fucking dominate in 15 years. But it's like, you got to keep that damn subscription service, and you got to keep those studios. That's another one of my big worries, which is like, if you're becoming a linear publisher, there's no reason for, I don't want to go through and name them because that feels shitty, but you know who I'm talking about. There's no reason for a lot of those studios to exist because they do not make money. But if you look 15 years in the future and you want to get as many people subscribed to Game Pass as possible, because Game Pass is not going to grow until we get directly to the TV. But when we get directly to the TV and it's on billions of televisions, just as soon as you buy your television, you get a little app right there, just like you do Netflix, and you can instantly stream to it, then you do need Double Fines and Compulsions and these studios.
Yeah, it's so tough. It's so tough to predict like that because they've already began exploring that with something, right? Some stick,
Mm-hmm.
Amazon
Yeah, the
Fast or
Fire Stick.
something. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that they've played anything through it through that way. Because the thing that like a year, not a year, but maybe a little bit like 2 years, 3 years ago, like the thing you would have expected to take off would have been it on like mobile. And what happens is it's then put into reality. You play it on mobile and you're like, man, this doesn't touch controls as shit. I'd rather just play it on. Because this is the thing, you have a better alternative. So when you have the TV, if consoles are still around, people will just probably just go with what they trust. That's the thing, trust. They know that that works. It's comfortable. It's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It'll definitely take some time before we're anywhere near
yeah,
this point of like
because we're
the,
stubborn. We're stubborn people
well, and the infrastructure
as a
just,
race.
yeah, the infrastructure just has to improve mightily.
But yeah, even then, like I said, like I just as long as there's gamers being introduced to them in this capacity, like new gamers, and you're showing them a PlayStation 5, doesn't matter what they're playing, as long as it's on a place that like that, that's just gonna become second nature to them. Because there's the big talk of obviously kids born with phones in their hand. Stuff like, Resident Evil 2 remake sold what, 10,000 copies on phones?
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're available, though, they don't sell.
Mm-hmm.
The infrastructure, it plays fine as well. It's not like it plays badly like high-end iPhones. Arguably, some of them are stronger than Switches.
Yep.
Um, it's just the thing where, like, if it's not familiar, they don't want it. I don't want to play a game on my phone.
And
That's why I never, like, I get messed around with it, and as a gimmick, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Never touched it again.
yeah, and also if you don't market it, then it's like people don't know it. If you had a storefront on your iPhone that was just like Steam, but that's a real commitment, because then it's like, okay, we need all of these big publishers to commit to porting their game to this storefront to have it available, you would need to really, really commit to this thing. And I don't know if Apple wants to start something from the ground and then try to really put, billions of dollars into marketing and research.
No,
And
because history's already shown that. Nintendo was a household name. The Wii U struggled tremendously because it had no third party support, really, at all. Like they left it out to dry and it struggled. So even if like Nintendo during that time couldn't, like, I don't, what's Apple got? They got money, yeah, but how much are you gonna throw at it? Like Google had bottomless pockets. People were pretty positive that they were gonna be around a lot longer. They tapped out real damn quick. They were like, fuck this.
yeah, I, it's funny that like, we could go in circles. We'll go ahead and close this off, but it is interesting because I think that like Google could have succeeded for
Yeah, no,
sure.
they could
Just
have.
if the
Yeah.
streaming would have been a part of it and not the
Hmm.
thing, because they were looking at like they weren't going to get Baldur's Gate as an exclusive, but like that's the direction that they were looking in. Cyberpunk, Baldur's Gate. It's like, dude, you locked down 3 of those, 4 of those. Yeah, you're going to make a push into this console space. They absolutely would have, but not with streaming. It's like the only way to play your games and you can't own them.
Yeah, but you've had tons of other like Amazon taking a stab at it. They're backing out. What was it? New World
Hmm.
winding down its support. Netflix has a gaming division. It's it's a lot more difficult than people think to get your foot in the door and stay there. Like people will happily slam that door in your face. Netflix isn't really making any waves.
Mm-mm.
Do you know any like I think I've seen like the Netflix logo on the App Store and stuff for certain, and that's it.
Yeah.
You never hear it in any conversation because it's not relevant, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's such an expensive industry to get into and really
Mm.
make a stand. But yeah, man, those are. I guess that's
Did I
the.
rate PlayStation?
Yeah, you gave it an A minus, and I
Okay.
gave it a C plus, and then you gave the Series X a B minus. I gave it a D minus.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, man. So those be thy those be thy reviews, and I'm gonna do a quick scan through. Let's see. Got to give a quick shout out before I get out of here. Captain Corndog, Sadik, and Vin. Thank y'all so much for supporting at that shout out tier. Um, and yeah, we got a lot of stuff on the way. Loon and I will be. We were recording today. A We recorded on your channel the
Biggest snubs from the Game Awards.
yeah, the snubs from this year's Game Awards. So that'll be over on Loon's channel. It'll be linked in the description. And we also have the 2025 Unnecessary Game Awards coming up very soon. A ton of categories, a ton of ramblings to be done there. And yeah, that's I guess that's pretty much that's it. Any plugs you want to hit before we get out of here, man?
No, you already covered all them bases. Thank you for the shout out and the linkage.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. So that's our review for the PS5 and Series X. I'll go ahead and get out of his hair, get out of your hair, Loon. I know it's like fucking midnight in your district. I said it's only gonna be a 30, 45 minute review, and here we are. I apologize, man.
So good.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, for stopping by, and yeah, leave the video a like if you liked it. Drop a comment for the algorithm, help get it out to some more eyeballs. And if you'd like, support on Patreon, YouTube membership, all that stuff will be linked in the description below. But take it easy, guys, and I shall see you, good people, in the next video. Goodbye.
See you later.